Hi, welcome to Tutor Talk. Today we're going to be talking about the top 3 reasons why students fail actuarial exams. And today we've got John Lee with us to talk about that. Would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself, John?
Yep, so I'm an actuarial tutor like you during the day, and then in my spare time, I mark actuarial exams and also write actuarial comedy books, music and memes, just to keep me off the streets.
Absolutely. And you've been doing this job a long time, haven't you, John? So I think you've seen a lot, probably every type of question in your marking and teaching exploits and all sorts of mistakes that people can make with them.
I have seen too much and am mentally scarred.
We'll talk very quickly to start with, just about exam preparation. So what position you should be on exam day. We've got a more detailed exam video or detail on exam preparation, but it is a precursor to making sure that you pass your exam. So let's just quickly go through that, John. What do you think are the key things that students should do in the run-up to their
So I would
exams?
say 3 things are what I've seen time and time again. So the obvious one is time management. A lot of students spill out of university and are used to having all the time in the world, and now they've got a full-time job and trying to study now and trying to squeeze those 2 things. They just get it wrong and don't get through it as much. You can see horror stories on Reddit of students going, I've only got this many days left, what should I do? Second thing, do blooming past papers. So for early exams, topics are the key. Because questions are asked in topics. Later, CP1 and I would say essay is slightly different because they're more big picture questions. And then the third thing I would say is a lot of people assume because it's online, we don't have to study, because I've got the notes. You don't have time to go through that. So you still need summary sheets and you still need to memorize stuff. Everything you memorize saves you having to look something up, and you will need that in the exam. So those would be my top 3 things for prepping, I would say.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. So we're going to call that number 0 on our list of things in terms of why students fail, because it doesn't apply to exam day. Okay, these are the 3 things that we're going to go through next, to the things that really apply when you've got your exam, you're on that day itself. So let's start with number 1, shall we, John? Traditionally, I guess we've already started with number 0, so I've already broken that rule.
We'll ignore that one. Yeah.
What would be the first thing that you would say is really important to minimise your
yeah, drives me mad as an examiner and a tutor. Just read the blooming questions. Just absolutely read the question. I mean, you see this all the time where you answer the question that you think it's doing. I mean, you're going to be nervous in the exam. It's going to happen. You're going to misread it. So I play a game in my CM1 tutorials where I say to students, right, you're going to do this question, and I'm going to bet that 4 of you are going to misread this question, even with me telling you you're going to misread it. And it's things like assuming it's interest rate when it's discount rate, or, just it just happens, or missing out that it's a force of interest. So read the blooming question. So when you're doing a question in the exam, highlight it, highlight the keywords, the key phrases, that kind of thing will just slow you down enough to see what it actually says.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I know I was given the advice, and certainly a bit of advice I tend to give is read the question, think about how you're going to answer it, and then very importantly, read the question again. What do you think about that advice, John? Do you think that's helpful?
Dear Lord, yeah, but we are assuming we're talking about actuaries here and reading, instead of maths. It's just, might not be good, but absolutely, you've got to take time and go, what does it actually say? And looking at the command verbs as well, things like that. So if it says state, you're not going to get any marks for doing working. You'll be wasting your time. But absolutely, but I would say the highlighting is probably the key.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
if you've got a PDF exam, use the highlighter on it and just highlight the key phrases, key terms, and what it's asking you to do before you get in there. But reading it twice can help as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Command verbs, we mentioned those just briefly there, really, really important. I'll put a link to those in the description underneath this video, so you can go and have a look at the IFoA website, which will explain what each of the command verbs, the instructions in your exam paper, what they actually mean. Okay, so have a look at that if you've not seen that before. Okay, so that's our first tip, isn't it? Read the question. Okay, really, really important. What do you think for our second most important piece of advice, John?
Second thing is just timing. The number of students you see who just don't finish the paper, and you're going, well, we know why. It's not that the last questions are hardest necessarily. It's simply they've just run out of time. And you've got to learn how to watch yourself. So if the exam's, 3 hours, that's 180 minutes, you've got 100 marks, so 1.8 minutes per mark. Yes, you've got reading time and stuff, but probably better to be a little bit more safe. So you go, this is 10-mark question. I have 18 minutes to do it. If you want to be sad like me in the exam, I used to have a stopwatch, set the timer and then go, right, my 18 minutes are up. Am I going to finish it in the next couple of seconds? If not, then I need to move on, because otherwise I'm just spending too much time on this and that's going to imperil me later. I, there's a number of different ways you can do it. I mean, we were chatting before saying, how do you do the paper? Do you start at the beginning? Do you start at the end? So, I mean, personally, I'm a kind of start at the beginning because I'm most nervous at the beginning of the exam. And so if I make a mistake, then it's on a small marker question and it doesn't have implications for lots of marks later on. But as soon as I reach something, I'm like, I have no idea. I circle it on the paper and I come back to it later and I just keep on moving on and get as many marks as I can. I think you use a different system, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, when I was doing my exams, I used to. I think the difference is that I was always probably at my peak when I was walking in and sitting down. I was always very focused and very much in the right mood. So I would tend to pick the hardest questions, or not necessarily the hardest questions. Sorry, that's not right. The ones that, no matter the difficulty, I felt most comfortable with in terms of the content. So that could be the big 20 marker at the end, or it could be the little 3 marker at the beginning. Okay, and I would tick those off because those are the ones I felt I was going to get the most bang for my buck for. And then the ones that I thought maybe I wasn't going to score so easily on, they were the ones that I'd run the risk of running out of time on, and I'd leave those till later in the paper. So there's two methods there, aren't there, of attacking the paper, neither of which are just doing the questions sequentially in order. So 3 different things maybe there, alternatively, that people could try to see what works well for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as long as you start a fresh page for each question, so it's easy to follow the examiner, you can do it in any order you like. So, naturally doing the ones you're most comfortable on is a good plan. Absolutely. But yeah, just be fiendish on your timing and get a stopwatch out. That just really helps.
That's our second one then, time management. Okay, really
Oh
important.
dear Lord, yes.
Okay, so we've got one more, haven't we? What do you think is our if we're going to have a top 3, what's the one remaining thing that you would say is most important?
Oh dear Lord. So it's all to do with the working and comments. So a lot of students who clearly know their stuff are not communicating it. I'm not allowed as a marker to give extra marks or infer anything from what they've done. So like, even though you've got it, you have to show your steps. I mean, for certainly mathematical ones, you can assume, say, one mark per step. So if it's 3 marks, you should do at least 3 lines of working. You just put the answer, you're going to lose things. So yeah, and similarly, if you're doing, say, the paper B, like the R paper, which you do, then you need to include, the full output. So the code and the output, including the graphs as well as your comments. And so many students only put, just the code, and it's like you're throwing away marks for no reason. The weakest part traditionally is the comments. Explain or comment on it. They've done very poorly. So typically in a 4-mark question, I will see students score only 1 or 2. So if I wanted to give a kind of view to it, number 1 would be state the downright obvious. So if you've just plotted 2 graphs or got 2 outputs and they say comment on it, the first thing you do is say, well, these graphs are similar or these graphs are different, and then you drill in and say, well, what is different about them specifically, do that. And then you say why, and anything you say why, always back it up. So if you go like this one's more strongly correlated, yeah, great. Why? Because, it's closer to a line, or it just something as simple as that. Do it. And you see this all the time with kind of like it's saying, which model is better, or comment on it. And so students will go, model B's better. And you go, well, that's great. That's correct. Why? Well, because the AIC is lower. So it's always backing up your point or referring to a bit of the output or a calculation earlier. If you do that, you're going to score much, much more highly. But yes, a number of students who clearly have got it, but just miss out their line of thinking.
Yeah, I agree, Jonathan. That's really important. If I may throw in a little line that I tend to use with students, apologies if I or paraphrase anything that you disagree with here, but I think as a marker and as the IFoA, they're not out to get you. What they want you to do is to demonstrate that you understand what's going on. And they ask questions which give you the opportunity to demonstrate that understanding, but you can only get those marks if you write down the things that do indeed demonstrate that. Yeah. So I think there's definitely a danger of seeing certain comments or certain things that you can say as being maybe too obvious. But if you don't write it down, then the examiner doesn't know that you've thought that, do they?
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of students just go, well, that's obvious, obvious that this one is better. And it's like, yeah, but why? I can't give you the marks unless you tell me. And it's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
Excellent. And just quickly, just to link that back to command verbs, if you have a look at that link again, the one that's in the description, this would relate, for instance, to questions which were described as explain or comment or something like that. Okay. So again, very, very useful thing to look at if you've not looked at before. Those are our top 3 then. So read the question is number 1. Time management is number 2, and 3 is show your working or your thought process, depending on what the question is actually requiring you to do. Thank you very much, John. That was really, really informative. I hope you guys have found that useful as well. So anyone who's got exams coming up, I hope you can use that advice in your preparation and also on exam day, and hopefully that will help you make the most or maximize the mark that you achieve. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much to John. And we will see you all again soon.